What is the first thing you think of when someone mentions drugs? Many people think of homeless people on the street or people out of control of their lives. Some think of loved ones who are struggling with addiction. Others think of parties and psychedelic trips. The point is, practically every single person you talk to about drugs will have a different perception of it depending on environmental factors or personal experience. This may not seem like a problem to some because it's become so ingrained in our society to not talk about drugs in a non-biased manner. When we were kids, most went to their school's mandated DARE program. Although it is good that we talk about the adverse effects of drug use to kids, that's all we talk about. Kids are required to take an oath that they will never touch drugs. So, why is there still a startling amount of teen deaths due to drug use? The answer isn't simple. However, there is a different way to look at this issue that can actively help this grossly not talked about issue. That is to normalize talking about every aspect of drugs. The simple fact is, teens want to do everything they're told they're not allowed to do, whether it's smoking, drinking, sneaking out, or drugs. Drugs are a part of our world. It's just how it is. Making kids' only educational exposure to drugs negative will only make kids want to try them more. According to a new report from the CDC, there's been a 19% increase in teen drug overdose deaths. The rate increased from 3.1 deaths per 100,000 teens to 3.7 per 100,000 from 2019 to 2020. This statistic is startling, to say the least. Nothing is being done, however, because of the fact that it has become a sort of taboo to talk about drugs. Take marijuana, for example. If you were to ask parents what their opinions on marijuana were, many would simply call it a gateway drug into things like heroin and cocaine. Although there has been cases of teens who smoke weed who then get addicted to harder drugs, it isn't nearly as common as one might think. If you were to ask a professional their opinions on marijuana, they'll likely tell you everything about the drug, the good and the bad. There are many people who use weed as a tool to get over ailments such as PTSD and anxiety. This isn't taught to kids, however. It is true that drugs are an exceedingly scary aspect of reality. Drug overdose and abuse is an issue that plagues over 19.7 million Americans. Studies have shown, however, that educating kids about drugs through a non-biased perspective significantly decreases their likelihood of drug abuse later in life. One show that I've personally watched that talks about drug use and abuse in an extremely professional manner is The Midnight Gospel. I'm going to show you a short clip from the show, and then we'll talk about what it means for teen drug use and abuse.
Let me just clarify I hate this idea of good drugs and bad drugs. There's no such thing as a good drug and a bad drug. There's this chemical that's neither good nor bad. It just exists out there. We either created it or exist in nature. And then it's the relationship that humans have with the substance that is the issue. And what our individual biology is and what it triggers and whatnot. That's the problem. Like Valium, blocked. If you need to have a colonoscopy, Valium and Valium Light drug, great, really good. If you're just drinking absinthe and partying and about to drive home, really bad.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Not because Valium's good or bad, because the circumstance and the relationship is bad.
For a basic summary of what you just watched, the interviewee, Drew Pinsky, an American addiction medicine specialist, talked a bit about how there's technically no bad drug, just bad circumstance of use. We're going to delve into that ideology a little bit more. Recreational use of drugs has practically always had a negative connotation, and for good reason. Drugs are scary and can be incredibly dangerous. I personally, however, know many people in my life who have been helped by drugs with little to no negative effects on their life. A good comparison example of this debate is the debate about gun control. Many people in that debate would say that guns themselves aren't bad, just the person wielding it. This is true with drugs as well. If there is an extremely unstable person, either emotionally or physically, it's incredibly easy for them to become attached to the few things in life that make them feel good. Add miseducation into the mix and you're left with a genuine problem on your hands. So, we're faced with a problem, but what can you do to help? The first step is educating yourself. Try to take away any pre-existing bias you may have about drug use and learn about the good and the bad. The next step would be to be aware of the teenagers in your life. If someone's struggling, recognize the signs and do your best to educate them on what they may be doing. If you personally have kids, another step you can take is to educate them yourself. Schools have failed to actively repress the growth of teen drug use, so the best thing you can do is do your part in your own personal communities. No matter how small, every effort made counts. I, and many others, firmly believe that if kids in school were taught about drugs in an entirely non-biased manner, the issue of teen drug use in America would get the recognition and help it deserves. No mother should ever have to bury their child, especially for something as seemingly nominal as drug use. You can help bring light to this issue by educating yourself and the others around you. Thank you for watching.